Hey, what's up? This is Copper, and today I'm going to take you through the Colosseum on a budget. I know a lot of people want to learn how to do the Colosseum and aren't necessarily sure how to get started. And I know some other people just want to know how to use Ancients in the Colosseum. So we'll show that off with this too. Here's what our setup looks like. We've got the Blue Moon armor set for Mage and Melee. Blue Moon is basically just Arims with a strength bonus, so it's great as hybrid gear in here. We also have the BowFa set for range damage. This is going to be our main source of damage on the waves. This setup is pretty accessible. It's got a lot of items that aren't too hard to find. This light bearer you don't necessarily need, this dragon crossbow you don't necessarily need. And overall, it comes out to 152k for the death fees. And 100k of this is the crystal helm. So if you're really tight on cash and you want to get this even lower, you can leave the crystal helm at home, but I wouldn't really recommend it. You do want as high range damage as you can get in here. Let's go ahead and get started with the run. First, we're going to eat an anglerfish and sip a divine ranging potion. This is going to last us for the first couple waves. Then we can get started. First thing you'll notice is we have a few tiles marked. This is our start tile, and we're going to start every single wave from this tile. In the Colosseum, nothing spawns within 4 squares of the player, so this tile makes it so we avoid these spawns down here. Every wave, we're going to stand here, wait for the enemies to spawn, and run to one of these tiles. 99% of the time we're running here, but sometimes we'll run here. I'll talk about that later. Over here are our south spawn tiles. Any enemies that spawn on these tiles can come down and see us behind the pillar. So these are what we need to pray against. To start the run, we'll drop a potion and put on the Blue Moon Spear. Make sure we're in mage gear to start every wave. And make sure we're on Blood Barrage for the autocast. Next, we'll talk to Minimus. He's going to show us 3 modifiers. Each modifier is a way to make our run harder, just like the invocations in TOA, and I'll probably call them invocations from here on out. On this first wave, we're always going to get the same 3 ones, but every wave after this, the invocations are random. Our first choice here is Blasphemy, so whenever an enemy hits us for damage, we're also going to lose some prayer. This tends to be a very safe invocation, as long as we're keeping on top of our prayer, so it's probably going to be our choice here. Let's see what else we've got though. Our second choice is Relentless, so enemies hit us a little harder and ignore some of our defense. I really like this invo with our setup, because we don't have much defense anyway, and as long as we're praying correctly, this isn't going to hurt us too much. Our last choice is Frailty, which reduces our maximum HP and makes it so we can't overheal with things like Anglers or Brews. Some people have success with this one, but I personally don't like it because it makes the lasers on Soul very dangerous. The nice thing about these invocations, though, is that they're mostly down to individual preference. If you find a set that you're comfortable with that doesn't line up with this video, feel free to take them anyway. Totally up to you. Of these 3 though, Blasphemy is the best pick, so this is what we're taking here. At the start of every wave, enemies spawn 5 ticks after I click this continue button, so we need to count them down. If you have Rune Light, you could just use the metronome plugin, but if you don't, you can also just do it this way, and this is what I do. Just click Augury, pray, 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 move, just like that. And that'll give you a consistent way to time the run, because these guys are synced up to the in-game clock, to the in-game ticks. It'll take some practice, but you'll get used to the timing if you try stuff out. Here we're going to take Blasphemy, and then we can start our wave. This is the Fremenic Warband. We're going to start every single wave by Ice Barraging the Ranger. And then we're going to Blood Barrage the Meleeer. And most of the time, if you want, you can just Blood Barrage these guys. It's a little bit slow, but this is the power of the Ancient setup. You lock these guys here, Blood Barrage them to death just on autocast, and then you can focus your attention on praying against these guys. That said, you don't want to do that long term. There's a faster way, and I'll show you that every wave from here on out. On tough spawns though, you can always just Blood Barrage. We have a couple mobs here. This guy is the Serpent Shaman. He's a very simple mob that just attacks with Mage. This is the Jaguar Warrior. This is a Meleeer. He's easy to avoid because he gets stuck on either this side or this side of the pillar, like just safe spotted. But he does hit very, very hard. Each of those hit splats can be a 47, so he can stack you out even from full HP very easily. We want to stay away from him. At the end of each wave, we need to come back to our start tile, because as soon as Minimus appears, we can't move anymore. Put on our Blue Moon gear, starting every wave with Mage, top off our prayer if we need to. And here we've got our 3 choices of invocations. We've seen a lot of these before. Our first choice is Blasphemy 2. This is a continuation of Blasphemy 1 that makes it so we lose a little more prayer if we get damaged. All levels of Blasphemy are good, so this is one we could take here. But let's see what else we've got. Next we've got Frailty, which we know we're not a huge fan of. But then we have Relentless. And we know we like Relentless. So, in general, in the Colosseum, I would always recommend taking a new invocation that you like over continuing an old one. In this case, that's going to make me want to choose Relentless, and we'll end up taking it here. Count down the wave start, run over. This time we've got a Shaman we need to pray against. This time we'll freeze the Ranger, we'll Blood Barrage the Meleeer, and we'll switch to our Dragon Crossbow. This thing has a special attack that's AoE damage, so this will take care of the last 2 Fremenics here. Much faster way than just Blood Barraging them to death, and that's what I would recommend every wave from 2 onward. You don't want to do it on wave 1, because you won't have enough spec energy to do it on wave 2. But these waves start to be long enough that we'll recharge our energy just fast enough. 40 seconds into each wave, we get reinforcements, usually this Jaguar. Sometimes the Serpent Shaman will appear too. And later in the arena, we have a Minotaur. I'll tell you more about him later. For now, we'll take care of this guy, nice and easy. But he's not the last one in the wave, because we do have this guy hiding behind the pillar. You always gotta check this far pillar, because things like to hide behind it. We can walk out this way 3 tiles to free him, and bring him down. We also could have walked out just 1 tile this way, and that's important to know, because it can be dangerous going to this side of the pillar. It frees guys up here, and leaves us open to the reinforcements. Speaking of, this is a new mob as well. This is the Javelin Colossus. Mostly he is a simple ranged mob that's going to attack us with attacks we can pray ranged against. But every 5 attacks, hopefully I don't kill him here, every 5 attacks he's going to launch a javelin into the air that we have to dodge. You can't pray against that. So we always need to be watching this guy and remembering that he's going to throw the meteor at us. Into the wave, come back to the start tile, put on our mage gear again, and it looks like our ranging potion ran out, so we do want to top off on wave 3 here. We always need one of these going for the Dragon Crossbow special to work against these 2 Fremenics. So let's also go ahead and top off the full, just brew up the 115, restore, do the whole shebang, because this is going to take us down. 3 new invocations. Our first choice is Blasphemy 2, which we know is a good choice. Next, we have bees, which will occasionally summon a swarm of bees to come hunt you down and kill you. Bees is famous for being a very dangerous and bad invocation, and I would recommend never taking this unless you're going for the combat achievement. Last, we have Doom. So if we get hit a certain number of times in a wave, we will automatically die. Doom 1 is getting hit 15 times in a wave, which is not too bad, but the higher levels of Doom can be a little more dangerous, especially on Soul for learners. So we probably want to stay away from Doom, but it's not too bad, especially as you get more experienced. Here, Blasphemy is the best of the three, so we'll take it here. Count down the wave, run behind the pillar. We have two things over here. We're going to dodge north. Going north is safe on waves 1 through 4, generally speaking. This is going to split up the mobs, so we can just shoot the seer here. And if we want, we can come over here and whip the archer. This is another option if the dragon crossbow doesn't line up, which it won't north of the pillar. Now we need to think about the reinforcements coming here. What we want to do is stand on one of these two tiles. And I'll mark these here. These are the Jaguar safe spot tiles. If you stand here, the Jaguar will stick himself on the wall like this. And as long as we're on one of these two, that'll stay true. Conveniently, we have two, so we can move out of the way of this meteor. We'll take care of the javelin. And you might notice we're burning rigor most of the time. I try to flick it a little bit, but we have plenty of supplies in here. This is a lot shorter than something like the Inferno, so you're not going to run out of supplies too often, especially in a setup like this where we don't have too many switches. As you get better, you can start bringing in more, but hopefully we want to keep it simple to start with. We'll take down the Jaguar here. And then we have this arrangement here. These guys are not going to wiggle out if we try to, so we need to off-tick these and make them attack at different times. What we're going to do is start at this tile and come down here. That's going to off-tick these guys. There we go, praying ranged first. And to pray against these, all I'm doing is clicking Mage whenever I see the Javelin's attack animation start. If you come from an Inferno background, this will be kind of familiar to you. Although, don't be tempted to one-tick alternate like you do with the blobs in the Inferno, because it doesn't work in here. Everything in here is on a 5-tick cycle, so your alternation will work for the first cycle, but since it's an odd number of ticks, you're going to get out of cycle later. So you want to do the Colosseum flick instead. That's just camping one prayer until you see it attack, swapping to the other one, and then coming back to the original one. We can pretend there's a mage here. We do it like this. Nice and easy. Click. Click. And it is useful to learn how to flick any two mobs in the Colosseum together. You should be able to deal with like a javelin and a mage, a javelin and a manticore, etc. Getting near the end of the wave, come back to our start tile, put on our mage gear, and we're ready to start wave 4. Our choices this time are between bees, which we know we don't want, Doom, which is okay, but let's see what else we've got, and Manti Mayhem, which is a new one. This effectively doubles the damage output of the manticores, which we haven't seen a manticore yet, but the first 2 levels of Manti Mayhem tend to be okay to take. Of the 3 though, I'm going to choose Doom this time, because I want to keep the manticores normal, so the first time you see them, they're just a vanilla manticore. Count down the wave, run over here, the shaman's going to reach us. Most of the time, you only need to pay attention to the south spawn tiles, but the shamans can come down from a lot more places. We'll do our normal freeze into Blood Barrage into Dragon Crossbow spec. Then we'll work on the shaman. That's how our waves are going to flow in general. First, we're going to deal with the warband. Then we're going to deal with whatever's south. We'll wait for reinforcements and deal with them. And then solve the rest of the wave. Nice and easy. Northwest Pillar is generally going to be pretty chill for us. There's a couple hard stacks. But in general, it's a very good place to learn. Because most of the waves are just going to stack up nice behind the pillar like that. If you want, you can Blood Barrage the melee to get some health back, because he has pretty low mage defense compared to everything else in here. I wouldn't recommend milking too terribly much, because we don't want our runs to take too long. Unlucky Jaguar, usually the heals hit a little better. But we don't want to milk too much anyway, because we don't want our runs taking a million years. Great. Now that we're done with the mage, we've got the Manticore. These guys are interesting. Notice if I step out, he doesn't do anything right away. He needs to charge up his attacks. And these are going to come out just like this. The ranged attack first, this green orb, then the mage attack, then a melee attack. So we need to pray against it just like that. Just like this. And what I like to do is make him real big by the prayer book like this, and click a prayer whenever I see an orb fly out. So I'm waiting for this green orb to fly out, click, 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 just like that, returning to the ranged prey. It's totally fine to camp both the defensive prayer and the offensive prayer with manticores. Again, we have plenty of supplies in here. These guys can be very dangerous when combined with other mobs, though. The flicks get pretty complicated. Head back to our start tile, put on our mage gear. We are now going into wave 5. These are the more dangerous waves of the Colosseum. So we have a new procedure we're going to follow at the start of waves. What we're going to do is every single wave from here on out, we're going to brew up to 115, restore up to around 80 or 90 prayer, and sip a ranging potion. This will set up our crossbow and our damage and make sure we're nice and healthy for spawns, which is when we're going to be under the most pressure. Next, let's see what we've got. Our first choice is Blasphemy 3, which is the last stage of Blasphemy, and a good choice here. Other than that, we have Relentless and Frailty, which we've seen before. But in the Colosseum, if you have the chance to finish an invocation, it's better than continuing one at level 2. So here we're going to take Blasphemy. Count down the spawn, run over here, and we've got two things that are going to come down. We do want to stand our ground here. It's very important that we don't go north, because if we stay north, we're going to get wrecked by the shaman and the jaguar that come out. As you can see, this was a tougher spawn, so I didn't even pay attention to the dragon crossbow. We'll lock in a little bit. Missing some flicks here. Okay. So you'll notice on the spawn, I didn't even mess with the dragon crossbow this time. All I did was blood barrage these guys to death. And on tougher spawns like that, that's totally fine to do. Blood barrage will kill them eventually. And that's kind of the power of the ancient setups for learning. You've got the Fremmies immobilized, so you don't have to worry about them. You just have to deal with the prayers. Our health has gotten very low, so after we kill this guy, we want to think about healing up. Totally fine, as always, to heal on the melee. You don't want to cast Blood Barrage on too much else in here, because everything in here has really high mage defense, but the Jaguar does not. Jaguar is our source of health, generally speaking. Next we'll take care of the Serpent Shaman, and because we got the 2 mobs south here, the rest of the wave is not too bad. That's kind of the trade-off. Either you're going to have a lot of enemies south that you have to deal with down here, or you're going to have not much south and pretty complicated stacks up here. It's nicer to have the stacks though, because they're all solvable and you get plenty of time to think about them, which helps me personally. We'll take care of the Manticore. And now we're heading into Wave 6, which Wave 6 is a wall for most people learning the Colosseum. We'll put our mage gear on here. We're back on our start tile. And like before, first we want to look at the invocations. Our first choice this time is Doom 2, so we die if we take 10 hits in a wave. This is starting to get a little dangerous, and Doom 3 is very bad, so we want to avoid Doom 2 for as long as possible. Next choice is Volatility, which in this particular setup is an extremely good invocation for us. We're taking care of everything at a distance, including the Fremmies, so Volatility isn't going to bother us too much. I like to take Volatility all the way to level 3 in this setup. Our last choice is Frailty, which isn't my favorite. We're going to end up taking Volatility here, but first what we want to do is brew up the full. We'll take 3 brew doses here, get to 113, hit a super restore, and a divine ranging potion. Still have plenty of supplies here. Count down the wave, run over here. This is a much more polite spawn. First we'll freeze the ranger, then we'll click the meleeer, switch to the dragon crossbow, spec the mage, and all we're going to do here is chill. It's totally fine to just hang out and wait for the reinforcements to spawn on your first quiver. Normally, we might have some stuff going on over here, which is especially dangerous on waves 5 and 6, because on these waves we get a Jaguar and a Serpent Shaman over here. And if the Serpent Shaman is the first reinforcement, which we didn't get this time, Jaguar's first, but if the Serpent's first, then we might have to deal with something like a Serpent plus a Ranger over here, or a Serpent plus a Manticore over here. All kinds of nasty stuff. We can, if we want, grab a little bit of health off the Jaguar. Why not? Come on, Mr. Jaguar. There we go. Then we can take care of the mage. From here on out, things get a little easier for a while. Waves 7, 8, and 9 are actually easier than this one. Alright, here we have a bit of a stack right here. We've got the Ranger and the Shaman. Ideally, we want these guys seeing us on different ticks. So let me talk to you a little bit about the different tiles you can step out from in the Colosseum. In general, when you've got a simple line of mobs on a pillar like this, if you step out here, the mobs are going to see you at the same time. So if you step from this edge to this square, they'll see you at the same time. If you step out from the center, like imagine this shaman's not here. We want just simple lines of mobs. If you step out from the center, to this tile, so 2 tiles from here. The back mob will see you first. This is familiar to you if you've done the Inferno. So the back mob will see you first, and the front one will see you 1 tick later. So that would be useful if we wanted to do like pray range against this guy and have the Manticore see us under normal circumstances. Again, pretending the shaman's not here. 1 square back is also useful. It makes it so anything from here on up will see you first, and these guys won't. This is what we're going to use right here, because if we step out, the Serpent Shaman is on the edge. He's going to see us first no matter what if we step out. So we want to make sure this guy doesn't see us. So we'll start Mage, step out here, switch to range, duck back in. This will bring down the Shaman. Guess I was a little late on that prayer. Alright. And now we have the stack we were thinking about before. What we want to do here is pray range, step out, have the Manticore see us, and then we can decide what to do. He's attacking with range first, so this is going to be an easier flick for us. His ranged attack and this guy's ranged attack will line up if they see us at the same time. So all we'll have to do is pray against the Manticore and make sure we're dodging the meteors from this guy. So let's step out. Here we go. In the back of our mind, we're thinking the Javelin is going to throw a meteor at some point. We'll just dodge. And all we're doing is praying against the Manticore. I'm not even looking at the Javelin because we know he's lining up with the first attack here. We've got another one. In general, focus on your prayers over anything else. Prayers and positioning. It's okay if you take a second to move and not click back on him to damage him. Manticore down. Onto the Javelin. If we want, we can also bring this guy down. I'll just demonstrate real quick that 1 step here will bring him down like this, which can be useful in some situations. You just dart out on this side and come right back. As we make it to the end of the wave, back to our start tile. Although we are going to have to move around, so anywhere around here is fine. We just want to be near enough that we can run back here once he dies. There we go. Back to our mage gear, and we'll prepare for the wave. Let's see what invocations we've got. Our first choice is Doom 2, which we've talked about. We want to avoid this if possible. Next is Dynamic Duo, which makes it so 2 Shockwave Colossi spawn at a time instead of 1. We haven't seen a Shockwave Colossus yet, but this is a very dangerous invocation in general. Sometimes it'll give you spawns that you just can't deal with, and I personally don't take this one. On the other hand, it's not guaranteed to mess up your spawn, so if you're feeling lucky in the later waves and you don't have any other options, this can be okay as a gamble, but you are adding RNG to your run. And our last choice is Bees, which we never want to take. Let's do our normal procedure. Brew up to 115. Hit a restore. Hit a ranging potion. This time we're taking Doom and we're not too happy about it, but it'll be okay. Count down the wave. Run. We went a little early that time. Freeze the ranger, flood the melee. And this is another one where if we want, we can focus mostly on the manticore. We have plenty of time here. Then spec at our leisure. Throw on the range gear, and then we want to come up here because for a reinforcement, we have the Minotaur, which is a new mob to us. I'll talk a little bit about him when he comes out. In general, you want to treat all of these waves like you're on a timer, and you always want to have a plan of some kind for the reinforcements coming out. A lot of the time, on a lot of the waves, the plan is just come to the pillar and safe spot the melee. But especially waves with Serpent Shaman reinforcements, you want to be thinking about what you're going to do if the Shaman comes down first. Luckily, that's only 4 waves of the Colosseum. 5, 6, 10, and 11. Everything else is just a melee. Alright, this is the Minotaur. He's another meleeer. And he's pretty scary. He can melee 74s. That's not all he does, though. If he's not attacking you, what he will do is heal any enemies in his line of sight within 6 tiles to full health. So not great. If you try to attack these guys before the wave starts, for instance, or before the reinforcements come, rather, he's going to come down and erase all your hard work. Sometimes you can kill something before he comes out, but it's a lot less common with the BowFa. So in this setup, I recommend just chilling and waiting for reinforcements most of the time. Back here, we have another new mob. This is the Shockwave Colossus. And this is another simple one. All he does is attack with Mage. This is basically just a fancy Serpent Shaman. He even has pretty much the same stats and pretty much the same HP. They do hit 54s though, so they're quite scary. What we're going to do is come to this tile again, and we're going to step 2 out, making it so he sees us first and he sees us second. Mage first. Start the off tick, go back to Mage, and I'm just clicking range whenever I see his attack animation go. We still get a dodge, but we want to prioritize our prayer over damage. There we go. If things get overwhelming or you're not feeling comfortable, feel free to just duck back behind the pillar. There we go. Next we'll take care of the javelin. And real quick, I have a little bit of forbidden knowledge for you that might have helped there if we wanted to cheese it. If you start on this tile and run over here, which I'll mark, this is actually going to corner trap this mob here. So if we wanted to, we could have just attacked the mage by itself. Remember, it's this tile to this tile. Nice and easy. Like I said though, that's forbidden knowledge, because you do want to be able to flick any 2 mobs together. This trick is mostly if you're just feeling lazy. As always, we're thinking about getting back to our start tile. Alright. And then mage gear on as always. We've got 3 new ones here. Our first choice is Volatility 2, which makes the radius of the explosion a little bit bigger. This is still a great pickup. We're just going to have to make sure to stay further away from enemies. Next is Doom 3, which is very dangerous, and you never want to take this if you can avoid it. Even if you think you can get through a wave only taking 5 hits, just the fact that you're a few hits away from death at any given time is going to fry your nerves. You don't want to take this on a first Quiver. Last choice is Frailty, which I don't take very often. So Volatility 2 is going to be our choice here. We're going to brew up, hit a restore, hit a Divine Ranging Potion. This is overkill for a lot of waves, but we have plenty of supplies. We're just fine. We'll take Volatility here and start. Alright, we have just a Javelin to pray against. Freeze the Ranger, Blood Barrage the Meleeer, Dragon Crossbow spec, and swap back to our range gear. This is another wave where we just have a Minotaur coming, so this is going to be nice and easy for us. One thing you'll notice when we have a stack like this back Javelin is going to follow us wherever we go. And sometimes the Minotaur is going to spawn in a place where he gets stuck on the stack. So it can be helpful to come over here and build the wall. Oh, we gotta move. That way he always comes down to us. There we go. One more thing to talk about with the Minotaur. Because he's 3x3, all 4 of these tiles are safe for us. So if you have something like a Solar Flare Orb going around the pillar, or even just Molten Sand on some of these tiles, you can come down here, and these are totally safe. We don't want to go one more down though, because he will come down to see us. Now we do want to start thinking about how to solve this stack back here. This is an AQP stack, and it's a shape you'll see pretty often in the Colosseum, with 2 enemies down here and some number of enemies extending out here. This is the smaller version, and what we need to know about this is that the mage is hanging over the side, so when we come out, it will always see us first no matter what. So we need to step out from a tile that makes it so the ranger does not see us on the same tick, which is this guy. So we'll start Prey Mage because he's going to see us first. Starting from this tile, we're only getting seen by stuff back here, so we're safe here. And we can come right here. As always, clicking the range prey when the mage's attack cycle starts. And here, I'm just attacking the mage first because he's squishy. Oh, I'm squishy too. A little early on my prayers today, so let's go ahead and heal up a little bit. Just safe up. We have plenty of supplies. Let's try again. Turns out to be a little difficult to provide commentary and play at the same time. Wow, how do you guys do it? Here we'll attack the Javelin. Alright, and here we have a more complicated flick to look at. We know that if they see us on the same time, we're getting attacked with Mage and Range at the same time. But if we start from here, this guy will see us first, and then we can do a normal Manticore flick. So let's try that. Range, Manticore, back to range. Little complicated. Let me walk you through what's happening. Starting on range prayer, swapping to mage when I see his attack cycle start, and then it's a normal Manti flick, except we're ending back on ranged. The whole cycle looks like this. Just back and forth in the prayer book like this. Let's see it for real. It's a little tough because we do still need to dodge the meteor. All we've got is the Manticore, so we can head back to our start tile. Next is going to be Wave 9, which tends to be a little bit of a calm before the storm of Waves 10 and 11, and it's also a little easier than the waves that came before. It's going to be our first wave with 2 Manticores though, so if I get the chance, I'll show you what happens when you're getting attacked with 2 Manticores at once. There we go, back to Mage Gear. We have our choice of 3 new invocations. The first one is Volatility 3. So when enemies die, they're going to leave behind a pool of molten sand that hurts if we step on it. These are pretty easy to manage though, so I like taking this in general. Our second choice is Doom 3, which we definitely don't want. And our last choice is Myopia. So this will reduce the range of our long distance weapons, like the BowFa and our barrages, by 2 tiles. This is a great invocation in general, all the way up to level 3. And like I said before, if we have a new invocation we like, it's better than continuing an old one. We'll do our Ritual, Brew, Restore, and Ranging Potion. And here we're taking Myopia because it's quite good. Just a Javelin to flick against. Freeze the Ranger. Blood Barrage the Meleeer. And Dragon Crossbow Spec the Mage. Nice and easy. Back to BowFa. Start shooting this guy. And our reinforcement situation is just a Minotaur once again. There we go. And like before, we're just gonna chill. Just gonna hang out and let the Minotaur come to us. What have we got for our stack? So normally this would be easy to deal with. We have 2 Manticores separated, and we could just kill this guy first. And we could certainly do that here. But I want to show you how to deal with 2 of these at once, so let's go ahead and bring down the far one. Looks like this guy is mage first. So there's a couple things to know about 2 Manticores. First thing to know is they know each other are there. So once these guys are charged up, they're actually going to synchronize their attacks so that they're waiting for each other to finish before they start. They're very polite. So we can take a look at that here. If I step out, we've got that. Both will charge up, and then they're going to attack one at a time on an interval like this. And we can start attacking this one. In cases like this, it's important to just not panic and focus on your prayers. And if you get uncomfortable, step back behind the pillar. We also want to be focusing on returning to the mage prayer before the next one starts. You might also have noticed that these are the same attack style, and that's always going to be true if the Manticores see each other. They'll always be the same. So if this is charged up with a mage orb first, I already know what this is. It's also a major. We'll come back to our start tile, and we'll start thinking about the danger waves we have coming up. Next are waves 10 and 11, which, like I said, are dangerous because they have a Serpent Shaman reinforcement along with 4 mobs on the wave, 2 of which are Manticores. The double Manticore actually makes the wave easier in some ways, but they can still pose a problem sometimes. Now that we're done, back to mage gear. And let's take a look at what we've got. It looks like our first choice is Volatility 3, which is still a great choice for us. Next we have Relentless 2, also a great choice. And third we have Re-Entry, which is an interesting one. This one makes it so that when the Javelin Colossi throw their meteor attacks at you, they leave behind molten sand piles that hurt you if you step on them, just like Volatility 3. Re-Entry is a very dangerous invocation in general, because Re-Entry 2 is going to make the sand piles permanent, but near the end of the run, like waves 10 or later, Re-Entry is a totally reasonable pick. It's still not ideal, but it's an option. That said, we have two great options here, so we're definitely not taking Re-Entry. We're going to brew up. We do want to be over full health on these waves in particular. If you're low on supplies, you could think about not overhealing on other waves, but these ones we don't want to take the chance. Take the ranging potion, and here we're going to end up taking Relentless. As always, freeze the ranger, blood barrage the meleeer, dragon spec the major. And we got a very polite spawn this wave. It looks scary stacked up, but I'll show you how to solve this. For now though, all we're gonna do is chill. We got a major and a minotaur on the way. And we're gonna build the wall right here, praying mage to start with, so they don't get caught on this stack as well. It's not the end of the world if they get caught on this stack, but it can be a little bit annoying. Mage is going to come down, Minotaur second. Nice and stable like this, then we can come over here. If the Minotaur is first, you want to run right away though. Oops, we don't want to take down the Mage Prayer. Now in this case, we don't want to kill the Serpent Shaman first, because like I said before, the Minotaur is just going to heal him. Here's what that looks like. So if we start attacking him, the Minotaur says no thank you, and just starts healing him back, all the way to full health. And as far as I know, you can't outspeed it. Maybe with two-shotting the Shaman with the T-bow or something like that, but I've never seen it work. Onto the Shaman now, and we have a longer AQP stack. So first, let's just take care of the Shaman. And like I said, this looks scary, but it's not too bad. There's a couple things we can do here. What I want to show you to deal with this, though, is the art of pillar running, which can be a useful skill in the Colosseum. In the Inferno, you know that running to South Pillar is a bad strategy usually, but that's not so in the Colosseum. It can be very good here. To get this to stack up different, we can do a run to the southeast pillar over here. How it's going to work is these two mobs are going to stack up just like this right here. This mob is going to stack up behind these two guys, which is going to give us a stack of 2 rangers. That's just fine. And this manticore is going to come down here. The reason we want to stand our ground on the spawns like this and not go north or something like that is because we want to keep the manticores uncharged like this. If they're uncharged, we can make pillar runs a lot more easily. So let's try it now. If we come over here, these manticores are not going to charge up in time to attack us. We know this guy is coming down to see us, so let's start praying mage. Wait till he's here. And then we've got a much easier stack to deal with. In general, pillar running is a skill in the Colosseum, but you don't want to do it blind. You want to think before you run. And ideally, if you've got stuff charged up, or if you have things with different attack styles, you want to be praying against them correctly, which we might see on the next wave. For now, though, we'll just deal with this Manticore. And then start working on these guys. Back Ranger first will make our life easiest. We're getting lower on supplies, but we still have plenty. Lots of food, lots of prayer, and I've even been burning rigor a lot this run. It's nice to flick it if you can, but not totally necessary. We are getting a little low on HP potions, though. If we want, we can try healing up on the Javelin. This is not the best choice for HP. Like I said, most things in here have pretty high mage defense. But he can do in a pinch. There we go. Now, we don't want to kill this guy right away. We need to make it back to our start tile. So we're going to run over here, praying while we're running. And that's a skill you'll want to learn. And then we can just wait for the Manticore. Run back over here, focus on our prayers. We'll just make him nice and big by our prayer book. This is great for learning. Next up is wave 11, which is easily the hardest wave in the Colosseum. You saw during our pillar run that we could pretty much just slap ranged prey on and move over, but that's not going to work in the next wave. We're going to have a mage and a ranger to deal with. So if we want a pillar run, we need to either figure out a way to off-tick them while we're running, or we need to tank damage, which is not ideal. Back to mage gear. Lots of death runes these waves. And we'll do our final brew up, super restore, and our last sip of ranging potion. Here we have 3 new invocations. The first one is Volatility 3, which we know is a fine choice. Next we have Relentless 3, which this is still a fine choice, but Relentless 3 starts to get pretty dangerous with the Serpent Shaman reinforcements. So I'm probably taking Volatility over it, but let's see what else we've got. Third choice is Totemic, and this is another one of those dangerous ones. This one will make it so when an enemy gets down to 50% health, a healing totem will spawn in and start healing them every few ticks. This can be okay on Soul, although you have to be very careful not to let it heal him during the enrage phase, but it's pretty annoying on waves. We could take it this late, but we have 2 great choices. We're just not messing with Totemic right now. Instead, we're taking Volatility. Count off the wave. Over here, and we've got a Manticore to pray against. So as always, we'll ice. We'll set up our prayers over here. And we've got a spec. There we go, nice and easy. Now over here, we don't have enough mobs to build the wall. So what we can do is dart out here and come back, bring the guy up there. Then we're not going to have the Manticore sliding along the top, which he can do when he spawns from some positions. And in this case, our Shaman synced up with the Manticore. That will generally happen if the Manticore is mage first, so I wasn't too worried about this guy here. We'll come over here, dodge the volatility. Totally fine if we get hit. It's just like 10 damage. Not a big deal. Then we'll start working on the Minotaur. At this point, the wave is mostly solved, and we can be pretty confident we're going into Soul. Wave 11 is hardest at the beginning. In fact, most of the waves in the Colosseum are hardest at the beginning. But once you've dealt with everything south, the wave is stable, and you can generally solve it pretty easily. Sometimes it'll take some pillar running or interesting off-picking, but if you can get past the initial spawn and reinforcements, you're golden. We're stable, everything's solved. Here, the stack is nice and easy. We know that if this charges up, the way Manticores work, they're always going to have their melee orb last. So we're either getting a range or a mage orb first. Totally fine with either way this Manticore charges up. In general, don't charge a Manticore unless you're happy with either option. You don't want to 50-50 these guys. It's very sad to lose a run on Wave 11 after gambling on a Manticore. We'll take care of the back one first, separate these out so we're dealing with them one at a time. Then we'll start thinking about the soul fight. Well, actually, we're going to focus on correctly praying and dealing damage first. Probably a little better to do that instead of counting our chickens. I didn't talk about it too much during the wave, but we do have these molten sand piles here now. If we stand on these, we'll start taking damage every tick or so. I believe every 1 tick. Been a while since I've stepped on one. They're not too hard to deal with though, because you can easily just skip over them. You run 2 tiles at a time when you run, so we can kind of teleport over them all we want to. Going on to Soul, let's see what we got. Ooh, an Echo Crystal. Nice little loot for us. Nice little 5 milli. What have we got so far? Yeah, this is going to be about a 6.5 mil run, plus whatever splinters from the Quiver if we want to trade that in. Anyway, sorry, that's my inner loot goblin coming out. We know that Blue Moon Armor is our mage and mage and melee gear. So all we have to do is put it on and our whip and our defender. Yeah. I like to rearrange my inventory like this because it's more like the simulator. And we're going to repeat our procedure one more time. Brew up the 115, sip a restore, and this time sip our super combat potion. Let's see what we got. First, we've got Doom 3, which we know we don't like very much, especially on Soul. We're even kind of skating on the line with Doom 2 here, but we'll be okay. Next, we have Solar Flare, which is a fine invocation in general. It's going to summon a little orb that normally it orbits the pillars and hurts you if you touch it, but on Soul, it's going to orbit around the center of the arena instead. This is not too dangerous. You can mark the tiles where it's going to be, but let's see what else we've got. Third is Quartet, so an extra Fremetic Warbander spawns at the beginning of every wave, and that does include Soul. I really want to show you Quartet, just because it's not as hard to deal with on Soul as you might think. Normally I would take Solar Flare here, but let's try out Quartet. I'll show you the tech. We're going to start with Piety and Protect from Melee on. Protect from Melee you wouldn't normally do. This is for the Quartet. Click Soul, and we have a Ranger. So this is how we deal with Quartet if we have it on Soul. All we're going to do is pray against whatever type it is. And then smack it with our whip once in a while. What I like to do is wait for a spear attack here. Then we're going to rotate around Soul after we kill this. And that's just because we have volatility on. There's our spear. We'll attack here. And then rotate. This will put us out of the range of volatility. What's up, everybody? This is Copper from the future, and I'll take over the commentary from here. I got a little bit flustered during the fight, trying to juggle Soul and talking at the same time. So let's go over the basics. Soul is going to attack you with either a shield or a spear attack. And depending on which one was last, you'll always know where to move for the next attack. The general rule is if he just attacked you with a spear, the next safe tile is 1 square diagonally. If he just attacked you with a shield, the safe square is either 2 squares or 3 squares away from the center of his hitbox. And that just depends on how many shields he's done in a row. I would recommend just using the Colosseum simulator to get used to this pattern, and I'll go ahead and link that in the description. Soul also has some special attacks. This one you need to just flick your melee prayer whenever the spear comes out. You can't have melee going constantly or Soul will turn it off for you. At a higher level, what we want to do is start in this northwest corner. And what that's going to do for us is start collecting the molten sand down here. Molten sand spawns at certain HP thresholds, like 25%, 50%, etc. And it only spawns within a certain radius of the player. So if we're standing here, it's going to appear here too. Main thing we want is to have enough room to dodge his basic attacks. If we run out of room, all we're going to do is rotate around him like this. My rotation here is a little bit rough, and I make some bad mistakes that are going to make the fight very difficult. But, on the other hand, our work with the molten sand is already paying off. You can see that to the right, we've got a big runway of land with no molten sand on it. And so if a laser comes out or we need to dodge, we can just move to the right away from Soul like this. All we're going to do is keep doing that until we hit the wall. And when we run out of room, we're going to rotate right again. We're just going to lead Soul in a big circle. This is another special attack. He's going to call out a piece of equipment, and we need to click that piece of equipment. Otherwise, we take quite a bit of damage. For the Soul fight, it's important to have a hotkey set to access your worn equipment. Not everybody has one, so you definitely want to set it up if you haven't. Here we click our legs, and you just want to click as soon as possible on that. You can time it, so if you get a perfect parry, you'll get a maximum hit. But for your first quiver, just do it as fast as possible. You want that muscle memory. Because if you're late on that, you take damage. But if you're late on doing it as early as possible, you might get a perfect parry by accident. Here's the feat. As the fight goes on, I'm keeping an eye on the lasers. If you're on the edge of the arena like I am here, the lasers won't trouble you too much. It's more likely they're going to be near you if you're closer to the center of the arena. That said, you do have less room on the sides, so it's a trade-off of whether you want more room or less lasers. Here I decided I didn't have enough room, so I rotated again, and we've got the parry. Because he's below 50% HP, the last spear attack in the parry is delayed by a tick, so you need to keep an eye out for that. We're about to hit Soul's Enrage phase, and a couple of things are going to happen there. The most important one is that Molten Sand is going to start spawning every couple ticks, so we are on a timer to kill him. But the other thing is that as soon as the Enrage phase starts, lasers are going to fire immediately, so be ready to dodge as soon as we transition. After that, it's a little more chill. All we have to do is take him down. Once he's dead, run away. We'll probably have volatility on. You don't want to lose your quiver to it. After that, though, you get to enjoy all the sick loot you got and your quiver. And that's Soul on the books. Thank you all for watching. I hope this video made getting your quiver seem a little more possible, or helped you on the way there. But let me know what you want to see in the next video in this series. If anything needed more explanation, or if there's just a scenario you want covered, let me know, and I'll try to work it in. I hope you all have a great night, and good luck at the Colosseum.